And but here last week I was telling you that you really need to get your things in order. You need your finish off your tax return, look at your financial plans, make sure everything that you have is done. Your books are closed for last year, this year. And here, a lot of the businesses are completely shut down. Some are limping along, and some they're all limping along. I don't think anybody's up at full capacity. So here we wanted to remind people you really need to take a broad look at your business, from operations to finance to marketing and sales. And what we're going to spend most of the time on here today is talking about these SBA loans. How do we get ready for it and carry it forward, and how much additional financing we want to understand. This loan was meant. If you only should have taken this loan if you think you're going to be in business out tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. So we need to look to see, and this may not be enough to take you through what you need to do to get yourself back up and busy. So we wanted to understand. That's why last week I was talking about you really need to put together a good cash flow plan. Even you don't have the rest of the pieces of the business, the cash flow plan of what you're going to need is there. And because you need to know how you're going to pay some of this stuff back if you have loans, if you already have them on the books. So that's really where financially your focus and your planning needs to be while Governor Wolf decides when we're going to be able to start up and run again. Next foil. Here, this is an update from where we were last time, and they're giving some guidance on how they're giving out money to this EIDL loan that we, or at least some of us applied for. I applied for that one. And their distribution will be 2 months of gross profits up to the maximum of $15,000 per applicant. This is in addition to the advance of up to $10,000 per client. And how they're doing that is they're giving, for every employee that you are, they're forwarding you $1,000. When I turned in my application there, I had I think it was 9.3 or 9.7 employees. I ended up getting $1,000. I had a profit, but they did not warrant or give me any additional loan as a result of that. I knew I was in the queue because I got a notification from my credit company telling me that someone had been active. I went in and looked, and I saw that the SBA had pulled my credit score. You need a credit score of at least 600. I guess I met that because a couple of days later, I ended up getting the money in my bank account. So that's one way of knowing whether you're in the process or not. And the other piece of it, a loan over $25,000 will require a blanket lien on the business. And they're saying it'll take 3 to 4 weeks to get through this process. Unlike what we thought they were saying in the beginning, that it'll take 3 days to get there. Obviously, that didn't happen, and it's closer to the 3 to 4 weeks than obviously the 3 days. Any questions about the EIDL loan? All right. Let's move to the PP. Back up one there. Thank you. Now here, their intention is to get this money through the employers, to keep their employees whole, to keep them on the payroll and keep in contact with them. That's really what they're trying to do with this loan. We could argue how effective it's going to be because the money that you get, I got mine on the 14th of April. My 8-week window started on that day. The day the money hit the bank, that's the day of the first day of your 8 weeks. One could argue, well, my employees I can't do weddings, I can't do this, I can't get the people. How am I going to spend this on payroll if I'm not there? I guess you could give it to your employees for staying home. It's just not where my head is conservative-wise. So I figure you got to work to get something rather than getting it for free. So I have worked up a plan, and you'll see the tools that I got here to help working that plan and how to put this together. But that is what the government, at least as best we could see, wants to do with it. You'll have no control over when the money will hit your account. The SBA has given directions to the bank that once it's approved, it got to get out of there immediately, and that's what happened to me. And see, with the banker there, I forget his name. I think it was Bill, and that's my understanding and our understanding what should happen. So whether the government decides to change that 8 weeks or not, or change the timing when they begin, who knows? You know that they're in the process. They have run out of money, so they have fully funded the 349 building at the moment, or committed it to clients. I heard on the TV the other morning that one large company had a $10 million loan. They closed another PPP loan. They closed another loan, and they said they're going to return that 10 million back to the SBA. Whether that really happens or not, I don't know, but that's what they said. But right now, the money's fully funded. The banks have to free it up before they can take on another one. But I believe, and everything to hear, I think that the government, hopefully sometime this week, maybe next week now, as the week keeps on moving on, will add more money into that as soon as the Democrats and Republicans decide what compromise they're going to come up with. Right, okay, now here, what we're going to do here in this presentation, which I sent out, you'll see that there's, we're going to click on this Excel spreadsheet. A little about this. This is 2 documents that came from Trout. And back up, because we got to click, we got to open up the, back up one foil there, Steve.
Having some technical difficulties. Just give me a second. I'll be right there.
All right.
When I went to go click on it this time, it just advanced it. So I had pulled it up before. So I'm going to pull that up in just a second here.
Anyway, that FAQ that they put together, I think is quite good. It's an Adobe document. You can read that if we have time and want to, we can go through some of those questions and answers in there, but they give pretty good detailed directions and answers.
So I just have to get out. There we go. So I'm going to open up the spreadsheet first, and I'm going to save that or share that.
Yep, let's do that.
Okay. Okay, you got that?
There we go.
Okay.
Now this spreadsheet that they have here, you'll find out that the only areas on these, there's like 4 or 5 pages in here, tabs in here. I added some above and beyond to this spreadsheet that they have. The first one I did here on this tab, I called the forgiveness calculation plan. And this is where I went through, and this one here I tied together. I assumed that the guy, this company ABC, ended up getting a loan of $107,000. And you put the numbers and dates in here that are in green. The other areas you cannot touch. They're either linked or coming back from another calculation somewhere along the line. And you can see here, it's pretty detailed what you want to do. Here that he showed up here, he's there. If you look at this, where they're right down here at the bottom of the screen on line 32, you can see that they're giving you specific dates of how to get to do these calculations of what your head count was in 2 different areas and what your head count is. In this case, you can see the plan that was put together here has only 8. And there was one that had 6 and one that had 7, 2 different time frames, and you're allowed to select either one, which is better for you. So in this case, I selected the 6, obviously, and you got no reduction. if we change those numbers a little bit, you'll find out that if you only had, if you had 6 here at the minimum and you only have a plan that supports 3, you only can use 50% of the loan, you'll have to pay back. So change the one on the top,
Okay, change it to,
make it a 3. No, the 11 up there, make the 11 a 3. There you see. You see here that, hey, the one calculation yielded 3, the other calculation to these timeframes, or I'm sorry, the plan that I put together here would only be 3. One point in time, there was a head count of 13, another head count of 6, and because the 6 was the lowest of the 2 compared to the 3, I have to pay back 50% of this $100,000 loan. And there's no way around that. That is the way this spreadsheet, and this is Trout's assumption, what's going to happen. So it's important that you look back to see what I got, what I can do, because there's some equations in here that would accommodate that. Now let's stay on the plan here. If you move over 2 tabs to the list of utilities, here you can see what these utilities are. They're electric, gas, transportation, telephone, and internet. And gas used to, there may be some others. I actually don't remember reading this note below, but those are the ones that are in there. So it gives you a little bit more detail what's acceptable and what's not acceptable off the list of utilities. This next one here, before we get to that one, I think the one after it, the FTE calculator, let's move to this FTE calculator. It's about 3 over, no, the other direction. Right there. This one here drove me up a wall. This is like the 4th or 5th different version of this file, of this Excel file that I been working with to put this plan together. And you can see here what they're looking at. All my professional career at Intel in management, we always considered a full-time employee when we calculated our FTEs, just take the number of hours that we needed, divide it by 40, and that give you how many employees we get funded in our plan, et cetera, once you had the agreement with your boss, obviously. But here, they're doing this a little bit differently. But as you can see here, February is only half a month. Why they did this from 2/15 to 6/30/19, I don't know. But here, if you see that the part-time hours are divided by 60, and then you have, they consider full-time people if the person earned more than 100, worked more than 120 hours per month. Considering a 4-week month, that's obviously only 30 hours a week. So if you have an employee that's working, say, 60 hours a week, you would think he might be 1.5 FTEs. He's only equivalent to 1. Anybody above 30 is just 1 employee. So the calculation moves around as you go through here. I used a different calculation when I did my loan application, what this guidance now is coming through. Then you take all your people doing less than 120, add those hours up, and divide by that 120 to calculate is, and then you add those together to get to your FTE head count. Now, there's a third point down here. Here's the 2 points in time. Here's that was 1 point in time. The second point in time, they allow you also to look at January and February head count, and the calculation's done exactly the same way. So you got to get access to be able to do this. Obviously, you got to have a payroll system that allows one to get their hourly things, because it's a very important calculation and part of the forgiveness calculation. Now, what I did here, if you go over and if you look, take a look at this, take a look at the February tab. It's about 2 tabs over at the bottom. And I have a series of these here, one for February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and September. I use T-sheets, and this is a typical report that would come out of T-sheets that tells me how many hours that person worked from 2/15 to 9/2. I'm sorry, through January and February. I took the month, added up the number of people greater than 60, added those hours together, and counted the people that were over 60, and these two equations on the bottom does that. And I've done that for every month, and that's the data that I use to fill in those tables back on the FTE tab. That's where I got these numbers from for this tab. You got it. That's how I did that. Now, as I said, this becomes pretty intense. Now, the other tab, these tabs that you see here called detailed expense, these are my tabs. I added this. This is the sheet that I put together that helped me do the plan that I got here. Now, I did here, as you can see at the top, I did week 1 through week 8, did the date that the loan started, the date ended. So I have from 4/14 to 6/9 to expense this money. So in this case, I took employee, talked about what I put my plan together, which is in the white bars here, rows here. The yellow is how I'm going to track the actuals. I got 1 week of payroll in, and you can see here what I have, how my plan compares to actuals. Now, again here, I have this set up that if you enter the employee's name, put their hourly wages in there, multiplied by the number of hours that you think they're going to work, you'll come along and fill out the table pretty easily. It's not as clean as the one that my skill isn't all that great on Excel sheets, but not as good and firmed up as much that cells and stuff are locked. If you look down at the bottom here, go down a little bit further on that tab, you can see here, now I have both the dollars and the things there. You got to remember on here, you can, when you look at how many dollars you can do, that is the gross wages that you paid those employees plus some other lines. We'll get back to that in a minute. Here you can see where I landed up, how many heads I have that are greater than 30 hours, which are full-time people. How many hours do I have in here that are less than 30? Added them up and put my plan together. All of these numbers come and add and fill out the table once that once you put them in the bottom, is the way I put that sheet together. Down a little bit further here, here's where I put together my sheet for the expenses that I got. You can see there, propane, fuel, telephone. I fill it out, what they're going to happen by month. Some of them are guesstimates. Some of them are in here. Obviously, not everything is clean, and what the rents and stuff are. These are legitimate expenses. This is my detailed sheet that fills back. I get the data off of here to fill back, go back to that main tab, that very first tab again, Steve. The forgiveness calculation. That's where this data comes from. I linked that chart back to here to fill out this equipment, to fill out this chart. And there's where my gross wages come in. And in this case, you can see that my gross wages plan added up to 83,000. I have retirement contributions. There's state and local taxes. That's the 88,000. My rents, my utilities for this 8-week period adding up. And at the moment, you can see this plan says that the loan forgiveness is $101. I should pay back, according to this plan, about 20,000. Oh no, you're right. I only have $107,000 one in this example, and you can see back that I actually don't have to pay back anything. But I found it very helpful to figure out what my overall plan is, and then figure out a way of tracking it. That was my objective. That's what I'm doing here to track the expenses. This particular one is going to, I'm using this second tab here, the forgiveness cal actuals, to show where I am. And this chart will, as I fill in some manual stuff every week, will tell me how I'm doing against my plan very actual. And I'm able to, with this methodology, make adjustments as I go through this 8-week period.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of detail, and you know, I don't know that many of us are gonna get it that far into it. You obviously have a bigger operation than most of us here, but it's great information. Is anyone? I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna stop the share and just go back to everyone and just kind of pause this. And let me unpin him and go back to gallery. Does anybody have any questions for Bill before we move on to the next part?
If there's only one or two within an office, are we going to have to track down to detail that close, or do you think we'll be able to just show our reports of what we've paid out? Any clue?
I think that we have at least one banker here. That's going to depend on the banker, because you're going to have to turn this information in that the banks require, and they can get pretty specific of what they're looking for and what they're asking for. They're not going to forgive that loan and then find out that the SBA isn't going to fund them or clear them from them. So I just like the application process was, in my opinion, you know, they were looking for all that detail. They wanted all the I's and the T's dotted. So if you applied for this loan, you're going to have to, and you want it forgiven, you're going to have to supply them the data. That would be my input, and that's the way I'm looking at it.
I had applied online, but there was never any area that I could upload any documents, and I haven't yet received anything to upload documents. I did get an email back.
That probably, again, I would say depends on the bank. The banks that I've done a number of loans over the years, and the last several that I've done in 3 or 4 years, every one of them has some kind of secured file drawer method to upload those documents to them. They scan them anyway, so they want them electronically, and that would be my opinion anyway. But so again, it depends on the bank and how you're doing it. Bill, do you want to add anything to that?
Hold on, he's muted. Go ahead, Bill.
All right, thank you. I don't have too much. We're kind of held from, it's not part of what I'm doing. I know that, you know, there are a lot of correction things are coming through, but I can't speak to how particular they are. I know that our processors are working very hard in the fine details of trying to, you know, reaching out to customers and filling in the blanks where they can. But yeah, I don't have too much more to add beyond. I apologize.
All right, but you know that's my experience, Trudy, and so I think, you know, there's a fair amount of money in here, and you're trying to not get too much fraud in the system, and so I think that they're going to be pretty disciplined on looking at the detail that they'll need to forgive the loan. And obviously, they'll probably be looking at the bigger ones than the smaller ones, I would guess, but in more detail. So.
Okay.
Like, will you provide your spreadsheets to them, or do you have actual documents coming from your payroll people?
I don't really know yet. The document that you see there, and I've seen a couple of them, this particular one, which we thought was the best from Trout, gave enough of detail in there and showed you how to put that plan together and link the data and what you needed. And that's been consistent. It's the same data that I heard from Morristown Bank, the time windows and stuff that are out there, not as good as tools from Morristown as I seen there from Trout. But that's what we're seeing. And so how exactly that's going to run, we all going to have to wait and see. And eventually you're going to have to file your tax return next year, and the accountants are going to end up giving information here as well how to do that. So Now, you got to remember that this loan, this PPP loan, in the case that the one I got will turn into November, is when they'll convert it from a loan to a loan minus whatever you have forgiven at that point in time. So at least that's the current plan.
Mike, there was a second tab there, and it was to pull up a PDF file. Do you want me to pull that up now?
Yeah, let's look at that.
Okay.
And we can look at the last two foils, because here's where I think SCORE can help people. So there you go. Yeah, here there's, I forget how many pages, 7 pages in this document of good questions. And they're telling you about the application. They're telling you about the time frame here. So they're telling you how to do some of these calculations. It's certainly worthwhile reading and going through, and is helpful. It's easy. Well, I don't know if it's easy reading, but it's pretty clear. We know how all accountants.
It's typed nice.
Yeah.
We'll
but I've read through it all, and it's pretty consistent. So we think it's a good document to use at this point in time, and I'm sure there's others out there just as good. But this is the one that we chose to share with clients.
So I'll throw this document up on the RPP Lancaster South Facebook group, and if you'd like, I can also send it out. It's part of the presentation, and it links through. But if you don't want to go through the presentation, you want that, I can. Bill, on the spreadsheet that you shared, can I share that as well? Do you want me to scrub that data?
No, you could go ahead and spread that data. So I don't see what's wrong with it. I gave a couple of different kinds of examples in it. And now, so let's go to the next, let's go back to the PowerPoint.
Back to the PowerPoint, sure.
Yeah, because, I know that this is, gets to be pretty dicey and complicated and hard to take care of in this short presentation. But here's where I think that we can help you. Go to the next one here. We talked about this a little bit, but we're here to help. We are, now I'll give my 30 seconds about SCORE. We have about 70 members. We have been doing our mentoring business since about 55 years now, and we're about 70 mentors strong. We have a broad range of backgrounds. In this case, we put together how we chose to put this together. We have a lot of influx of clients at the moment seeking help here on getting their business started, up and running. It isn't just filling out these sheets, but you shut down your business. Now you got to start it back up again, and you got to figure out how to do that. You may lose employees, you may not. They may not want to come back to work because unemployment is more money than maybe what you're paying them. So there's a lot of issues in there and a lot of things that need to get started, and how do you keep contact with them? So we're here to help all of that. We are free. It doesn't cost you anything to do this, and we can help through any of these processes and activities that you've got going. And the way we organize this, we'll help you with this using this financial calculator or some other method. If you don't think you need that or want that, or you have something else, we'll help you work through the plans how you know it and how you want. Obviously, the more employees you got, the more dollars you're dealing with. You need some additional tools to do that. If you only have one employee and that's all you got, there are things that you can do. One thing that I did point out on that prior Excel sheet, you'll see that I have a list of employees and I have a list of owners. In that case, let's say that you were not an employee in your business, and you have employees in your business, but you as the owner was not an employee. There's nothing in those rules, and I checked this out with my own accountant as well as Trout and others, that they came back and says, they don't give you a list of employee A and match it to employee B before and after. They're looking at dollars and they're looking at head count, not names. So if you want to put yourself, if you're not an employee, put yourself in the payroll. it seems to me that that's 100% legitimate, and it's another way of getting dollars to yourself, which you may need, by the way, uh, uh, and to do it in that fashion, and also to meet the needs of the PPP program. Now, I struggled with that, wondering whether that was, is that black, white, or gray? And my accountant, BSS&F, and Trout, and others that we know of at the moment do not believe that there's anything wrong with doing that. That's perfectly legit. So I want to point out that that's another way of helping this during the short term before you bring back your employees. And you may need to hire a payroll company to be able to get yourself paid rather than doing it yourself. There are ways of doing that, but you may want to go to a payroll company and do that if you don't have employees at the moment. But if you applied for it and you have employees on that list, that is one way of adding employees that are there. We have a number of clients at SCORE that has a large number of clients that only share the bottom line. And that's where some of this, we have a number of clients like that are accommodating. So it's a strategy that potentially you could use. And that's what we mean here by this develop strategy, enhance the value of that PPP loan. There may be other ways that are legit that we could help you with, look at, and do some research and help you decide. We don't make the decision, at least give you some tools to be able for you to go ahead and do that. So that's how we can help you walk through this process. On the next slide is what I was talking about here, Steve.
Yep.
We do have a team of people, a SWAT team, and we have 3 people that we've identified that understand each aspect of the PPP loan, one for the PPP loan, and they spend all their time looking at it, working on it, discussing it, and integrating together what we're hearing about outside the community. And then we have a team meeting once a week, which we come back and listen to what they're telling us and passing that on to the members. The members have access to this higher level of support that should be helpful in helping the businesses get up and running. That's our goal and our objective.